Hello, welcome to the CG Pro podcast. If you enjoy what you see tonight, like and subscribe, and feel free to follow us at becomecgpro.com. Gives me great pleasure this evening to welcome Sally Slade. Sally has an incredible diverse background. She's worked across engineering and arts. One of those people who has an amazing brain and artistic skill as well. We've actually had the opportunity to work together on The Lion King, and she has done some amazing other things, working in creating things for the Oculus and HoloLens and Magic Leap, and we're well known for her work in The Lion King, developing the user experience, the stage tools, the virtual production system that was created for the Lion King movie. And she's also the founder of Vodcasto, a virtual production application for VTubers, which we'll hear more about in a second, I'm sure. Sally, welcome. Thank you very much for joining
Yay!
us.
Thanks for having me. And I'm
Pleasure.
excited to see all this love from the chat.
Yeah,
How
come on, chat
cool.
people.
Very cool.
Oh, here it comes. Yeah, I got some emojis. I love it.
Hmm.
Cool. Well, yeah, I always like to start this off just by kind of going backwards a little bit and asking you about how this all began for you. You know, where your inspiration to get into the work that you do now comes from, and both on the sort of engineering end and the artistic end, I guess.
Oh, wow. We have an hour.
Yeah,
Um,
let's get into it.
yeah, okay. So let me think. When I was a young child, I saw a Pixar film and I thought, this is incredible. I want to do this as a job. And I began my journey. And I knew that I could draw, and I knew that I liked making websites, and that's about all I knew. I didn't know, any of the careers that were involved with this kind of thing. I knew you could be an animator. That's about it. I didn't know you could be a lighter, effects artist, TD, producer, any of that stuff. I had no idea that existed. Um, so I just went to school kind of like on the lookout for animation classes or anything like that, which didn't come easy at a liberal arts school. And then I kind of got some great advice about like, hey, there's plenty of computer science related careers in the animation industry. You should maybe be a programmer. And I thought that sounds great. And it sounds like it has a lot of potential great fallback options, just in case, people decide they don't like animation anymore. I can always go work for like Microsoft Word or something. So I studied to be a programmer, and then just like sent my reel out everywhere, because as part of programming, I wanted to learn Mel scripting and Python and do Maya and stuff.
Cool.
And
Was
so
it,
I,
what did you study? Did you, was it a degree
computer
in computer
science.
science? Great.
Yes. Yeah.
Same as
Um,
me.
Wonderful. Look at us go. So yes, I was able to access Maya through our computer lab, and I was like kind of learning basic animation stuff along with the programming stuff. So I had this gorgeous, maybe grotesque, I don't know, just terrible little reel of like spheres and cubes and stuff that I was just like, this is my ticket, the big leagues. And I sent this out to about 30 different studios that I found via stalking films on IMDb. Got a lot of rejections, but I got one call back from Digital Domain, and they were like, yeah, we don't want you as an animator, like at all, but we would take you as a data integration intern. And I said, that
Wow.
sounds amazing. um,
Yeah.
so I did that, and that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. And from there, I was able to evolve. I almost immediately became a technical director when one of the gentlemen on the team left in the middle of a project to do his dream job. That left a great seat for me. and they were just kind of like, Sally can code, send her up. I'd never like launched Nuke or done anything related to compositing, but I was immediately the compositing TD for Transformers 2.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that was like wild and fun and nerve wracking. But I did pretty good. They kept me around, and I stayed in visual effects, doing that kind of stuff for something like eight years. Um, yes. Then
Wow.
I got to VR. Still wasn't an animator. Still wasn't quite doing, the shiny, colorful, like animation things that had initially like turned me onto this entire career path. Was doing mostly like live action type stuff. It's fine. It's fine. um, so
Yeah,
then,
funny what the way that life introduces what you're supposed to be doing and it's different than what you thought you
yeah,
wanted to do.
yeah. So that was great. Then I tried VR, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And now this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I learned Unity, game engine, and C Sharp, and joined a VR house. Well, they're a lot more than that, but they were focused on VR at the time, which is Magnopus, which is in
Right.
LA.
Yeah.
Yes. And from there, I got this, just wonderful education on the job about like how to make games, how to design games, what's a game loop, what's, all of this different stuff that I just had no exposure to. Um, and it was just super empowering to be like, I can make apps now. Like I can make games now. And that was very cool, which, asterisk is where I worked on The Lion King with you,
Yeah.
making this virtual production pipeline, which was like a nice combination of everything I had been learning in visual effects meets all my new game engine skills. Like let's mash them together and make a tool. Um, so that was rad. Um, but yes, there I was powering up, like learning all this stuff. And then I was like, you know what? Now's the time. I can finally make all the colorful, shiny, like animation type stuff I ever wanted because I know how to make these apps now. And thus, Vodcasto was born, which is the VTubing application that I wrote, which uses facial motion capture to animate cartoons. And thus, I finally, in a very long, roundabout way, became an animator with my face. So that's kind of my path to where I got to where I am now.
Amazing. That's great.
Thanks.
Well, yeah, yeah. Thanks for explaining how you got there because I think it's really interesting. I know some of the people watching will be in the industry already, or whichever industry that would be. Some people have already got the job they wanted, but some people haven't, and they're trying to find their way in. So I think it's really interesting to hear about how you get started, and it sounds like you had that experience where you got in not doing exactly what you thought you would be doing, but you found your way into the industry, and that opened up all these doors once you got in. So would you say that's a good piece of advice for anyone starting out today?
Absolutely. Yes. My first job was, tracking match moving cameras. Um, and it was only a 2-week gig. So like I was had just moved to LA. I was pretty broke. I had secured this desk job answering phones. I was just about to get like 401k there and like all the nice trappings of a whatever desk job. And I got this call that was like, "Hey, do you want to work for 2 weeks on GI Joe?" And I was like, yes." Threw it all away. Gambled on the VFX career, doing not exactly the thing I wanted to do, but it completely worked out.
Amazing. Yeah, sounds like it did. Yeah, it's interesting. I had a somewhat similar beginning, although I went off into the world of corporate code for a while. When I came into visual effects, I got a 2-week opportunity on Harry Potter doing camera tracking as well. Like,
Ah,
yeah, similar kind of way in, and then I ran away into commercials for a while, but back into movies a bit later on. But yeah, it's amazing where it will take you when you have a dream. You can end up accomplishing that a little later on, having gone through some interesting learning experiences. What Yeah. So what would you say was your favorite part in the beginning of your work for DD? What was it, the developing, or were you kind of, did you have your eye on the art stuff from the beginning?
I
It sounds
really
like you
loved.
enjoy being a developer.
I did. I love it. It's great. I think I'm much happier than I would have been if I had been like a proper animator. Um, but it. I think my favorite thing was, being a technical director, making these little tools for artists. You're working with like sometimes 15, 20-year veterans, and they've seen it all, they've done it all. And you admire their work like fiercely. Like, how do they do this magic? And then you're like able to help them because they don't necessarily know scripting. So they'll ask for a tool, you'll write that tool for them, you will give it to them with a fast turnaround, and suddenly they're like, who is she? Like, she's the magic person. And then they're kind to you, they use your tool, and it's just this wonderful feeling of like, I don't know, it's cool to be on the radar of people like that without having had to put in 20 years time. You get to interact with them regardless, and DD was great for that. There was just so many people with such colorful stories and histories, and you got to be someone important for them in their
Yeah,
workflow. So that was rad.
that's awesome. Was that back when it was in Venice?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, very cool. I had a little stint at DD when it moved to Playa, but it was just around the time that it was moving that I got to LA about 10 years ago ish.
Wow,
Yeah,
that was 10 years ago. Geez.
yes, I'm sorry. Sorry to be the one to break it
Sobering.
to you.
Yep.
Yeah, life moves pretty fast, as somebody said once.
Mm.
Cool. So, yeah, it's really interesting having the diversity of skill set that you have, because you obviously spent a bunch of most of your career in the creative industry, but also straddling being a developer is somewhat unique. People tend to usually to one side or the other. They'll either be into the tech side of it, whether it's tools or being a tech artist, or being more on the artistic side of it. Um, do you like doing both? Do you
Yeah.
enjoy?
Yeah, I do. It's very, empowering. You're like able to do the two things you need to do to get the project off the ground. So it's a great vibe of being self-reliant.
Right. Do you practice? I guess through your app and through your own work, do you still work on your own projects? That's something which I think is important to keep alive personally. Are you working on your own animations or your own artwork in the background as a part of
Yes.
your work?
Yeah, it's interesting because the my project that I was doing was Vodcasto, and now that has become my day job with this new gig I have as co-founder at Voltaku, an animation studio. So now full time, my project has become my full time work. So I need to get that work life balance going and start to have a distraction outside of
Right.
my day job.
Yeah, I definitely want to ask you more about that, because I know that's something that's happened recently for you, and it's a big bit of news for you. Can you tell us, seeing as you brought it up, can you tell us
Oh,
some more about Vodcasto? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people watching that'd be really interested to hear about what that is, and then we can talk about Voltaco as well.
yes. So Vodcasto is this application that uses facial motion capture to animate avatars. In my case, I've largely focused on 2D avatars because that is my favorite type of illustration. And I kind of got it into my head that I wanted to make this in the first place because I wanted to make a cartoon show with my friends. And as discussed, I am not much of an animator. So I thought, ooh, I bet I can combine ARKit with 2D illustrated, like rigged illustrations, and like make it work. Because as you know, we were working on Lion King, doing very similar stuff. It's like, how do we combine VR inputs with a 3D model and like puppeteer the model, like same kind of wavelength. So I thought, aha, I can skirt entire decades worth of knowledge I would otherwise need to make this animated show, and just do it on my own. And there was some solutions out there, but they were kind of hard to access, or like in Japanese, or behind a paywall or whatever. And I was just like, I'm just gonna do it myself. And I'm gonna give this app to my friends, and they will graciously test flight with me, and we'll refine the app, and we'll make it the perfect tool to make this cartoon show. And all we wanted to do was this like sort of Beavis and Butthead-esque, like, or maybe Mystery Science Theater, where you're just kind of like sitting there and you've got like a music video playing in the background, and you comment on it. That's like all we wanted to do. And we wanted to do that specifically for local musicians in Los Angeles. We thought, like, we love going to bars, we love seeing the musicians play, we want to kind of get to know more of them, and this would just be great for a cartoon format. So that is kind of what inspired the genesis of the app. And then I just kind of tenaciously kept that vision alive until it was like an actual product. There was like a moment where I was like, this is working great for my friends and I. What if I put this in the App Store?
Right.
Yeah. And I just thought, that's a skill I don't have yet. I want that skill. I want to know what it's like to make an actual public-facing product. So I
Cool.
did that.
So you didn't intend on necessarily productizing it when you first started doing it. It was really just for you and your friends, and that's something which emerged as you went. Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that was fun. And once I got it in the App Store, I was like, now that I have a product, maybe I should like try to market this product. Maybe I should see what that's like. So I took some time off from my day job, and I was like, I'm gonna pour my heart into this. And I focused on building up our show, and I focused on making engaging on like Twitter, and having this identity as Saltech was the name of my company, which I thought's cute.
Nice.
So Saltech became this entity that would talk to the world, with a couple dozen followers. And it was just very cool and fun. And it attracted the attention of this startup called Voltaku, which was this virtual production animation studio. And they were like, hey, we like your app. And we think that our like community, like our fan base, as it were, might like your app too. And we want to make these films, and then we want to have the assets from the film be puppeteered in your app as like a cool thing. And I said, that sounds great.
Cool.
Yeah, so I kind of joined this brain trust of Voltaku, and we dreamt up this whole business model that they'd been iterating on that's like quite exciting, which is this sort of marriage between a virtual production pipeline making episodic content like features, and then this kind of more interactive pipeline that's supporting the community, so that we can like share assets in between, and then have the characters from the show can be VTubers, or they can all pop into VR chat and hang out, and the community can use like our avatar builder or generated avatars to kind of join us and like be in theme, and it will be like this wonderful immersive experience. Like, won't cost too much, like time budget wise, considering that we're already making the assets for the feature length stuff. So like we just thought, what a great use, like what a great synergy. And that's kind of the idea behind the studio. So very excited to join up with them. And we'll be, serving my favorite audience, which is the otaku audience, which, if you're not familiar, is a word we've adopted from Japan, meaning like obsessive fan, typically of like, so like often of like genre content, like you could be an obsessive fan of anime or gaming, or in my case, rom-coms, or like fly fishing. It doesn't matter. If you latch onto something and really love it, then you are an otaku. So we're trying to serve
Got
this
it.
community of this type of fan of, Comic-Con style stuff. So very exciting.
That's very cool. I am noticing in the chat already that you've at least got 3 people downloading it whilst we've been talking. So
Oh,
yeah,
thanks, guys.
that's cool. And yeah, a couple of questions coming in as well. One we have is what inspired you to use your skills for VTubing?
Oh, well, just wanting to do that show, wanting to make that music show with my friends. Um, I was not aware of the VTubing phenomenon until I started kind of researching, blending ARKit and 2D rigged illustration, and then I was like, oh, this is like a thing people are already doing. This is going to be huge. So that's, I guess, what inspired me was just wanting to make that show and not wanting to animate by hand.
Yeah, that's hard. Animating by hand is hard. I've found the same thing when I got
Yes.
in. I thought I was going to be an animator. Jurassic Park's what did it for me. That's what made me want to get into the industry. And seeing that, I was like, I want to be an animator. I want to animate dinosaurs. And then I got into CG, found out animation was quite hard, and ended up doing a whole bunch of other things and animating as well. But yeah, it's hard. Definitely, mocap's great. That
Yes.
helps.
Yes, it does.
Very cool. Yeah, another question that came in was, um, I have noticed, somebody says, I have noticed that 2D rigs have improved a lot recently. Do you plan to introduce hand tracking in the future?
Yes. So what I've noticed as well is that, as VTubing becomes more popular, people are like getting in on the creation of it. Like they want to do engineering, they want to do rigging. And I've noticed as well, like the rigs are getting so much more complex. Including, people are experimenting with like essentially the 2D version of IK, where you position your hand based on the hand tracking, and then it just kind of figures out where the rest of the joints go. So yes, we absolutely want to support that. It's just been um, it's been tough to focus on my roadmap during this wonderful merger that I'm lucky to be part of. So as soon as that kind of settles down and we've got our groundwork for Voltaku up and running, I can focus again on the engineering of the app, which I'm very excited to do.
Amazing. That's very
Yes.
cool. Yeah, it sounds like it's going to add gasoline to your project and allow you to keep doing more of what you're already doing, which is amazing.
Yes, that is how I was described during this acquisition. They were like, "You are the jet fuel. We've built the jet, and you are the fuel, and let's go." I thought that was flattering and wonderful.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's great being able to get together with other people who share the same kind of vision. It's really cool that you guys met, and I'm excited to see where it goes next. Is
Yes.
there anywhere that our listeners can check out any of that, or is it so early and secret that none of that's visible yet?
No, no. They can definitely check out Vodcasto. It's already in the stores. The
Right.
stores. It's already on Apple's App Store. As far as Voltaku, we have a website, voltaku.com, which has Twitter, Discord, mailing list, and like a very limited amount of like little sneak peeks of the first project we're working on, which is this comic book series called Kiltopia, which is this wonderful commentary slash action kind of cool comic book about robots and humans living together and what does that look like and social collapse and Neo Tokyo type stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I do confess I know a tiny bit about that from being in the, friends with Chris. So yeah, really, really, really cool to see you guys joining up, and I'm excited to see where it goes for sure.
Yes.
Um, just going back to some of the things that you've mentioned already. I'd love to hear a bit more about, because I know we worked on the movie together, we worked on Lion King together, but almost didn't speak or meet, because we were in these different parts of the building, different companies. You were working with Magnopus, I was working with NPC on that movie. And we definitely were working on the same boat, but in different parts. So I'd love to hear a bit more from you about what you did on the movie, what you worked on, and what that was like.
Sure. So I was recruited for this little team that we had of about 5 or 6 engineers to build this system for Unity, where we wanted to essentially be able to put the filmmakers into VR and allow them to move cameras around in real life and like have those cameras be, shooting the VR environment and all this. And they said, Sally, you'd be a great fit. You love weird input output devices and film. And I said, sign me up. Plus, being on the west side would be great. The
Yeah,
sound stages were all close to my house. So yeah, that was fun. And when I got to the team, there was already some foundational stuff in there that was looking pretty good, but we needed a ton of tools still, and we needed smooth, frictionless ways to access them. Like menus that are apparent how to use, tools that might be familiar to these, legendary cinematographers who've been working IRL exclusively. So they're like, very familiar with what a lens looks like. They may not necessarily know what the equivalent of that in VR would be. So it was like a
yeah,
very cool design challenge. We attempted to do a lot of skeuomorphic design, which is a $5 word meaning make the thing look like it looks in real life. Kind of like the wastebasket icon on a operating system looks like a
right.
wastebasket. So you kind of get the clue of what it is and how it works. So we tried to pursue that quite often. And there was challenges like beyond just trying to onboard these people into VR in the first place. There was like, what about motion sickness? Like how can we, like, there's only so many buttons on the controller, and we definitely don't want to overwhelm them with the amount of buttons. So lots of cool challenges. I think my favorite thing that I came up with on that project, I was sort of like our user experience person, like just making sure that it was smooth and frictionless. Everyone had their little role to play, and that was mine. Like, no one's allowed to get sick, no one's allowed to get confused. Go. um, so
Good rules for the game.
yes, yes. And I had two things that I thought were just such a triumph. One tool was the undo tool. And I just thought, we're out of buttons. We're already using all the buttons for stuff. We need a way to quickly access undo. What do we do? And I had this kind of like revelation of like, hey, we know where the controllers are at all times. What if there was some kind of movement that they could do that was, that would engage this action? And what I came up with was from the show Friends. They had this gesture they did that they would do this as like a sort of fu. But I thought that the gesture itself I was like, this is perfect. Like it would be super easy to calculate if the controllers are doing this. It's very intentional. You're not going to do it by accident. And like, whether or not they're familiar with the TV show, like it does have this like tiny sense of frustration within this gesture. So like, if you've done something wrong, you're going to be a little frustrated. It might be cathartic to tap the controllers together. So that is what we ended up doing as an undo gesture. And it was great. It was easy to remember, very popular, a triumph. And then the other sort of gesture we had was there was this need for location. Like we didn't know necessarily where everyone was at any given moment because they were scouting this enormous virtual set, just all kinds of landscape and desert and mountain. So they would lose track of each other. So we made this really cool beacon tool that I got the gesture from the Tron poster where they're like holding their hands above their head really tall. And so we made it that if you kind of hold the the tips of the controller together above your head, then you'll get this really nice giant column of light indicating where you are. And then you'll see like streams coming out from your hands of like where everyone else is. So they'd be like colored, the avatar color, and like labeled. And suddenly you've got this great lay of the land, and you've got like a signal flare if anyone's looking for you as well. And that was just like very fun to design. Definitely didn't make anyone sick or confused. Didn't use too many buttons, and so I was quite proud of those.
Nice. I definitely remember those from being on the move. I can remember watching Jon Favreau with his hands above his head more than
Yes,
once.
good times and a little cardio for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's really cool to hear about that. It's yeah, amazing how you can be sitting meters away from somebody and not know what they did. So it's very cool from my perspective to hear about that. I'm sure really interesting to people out there as well. So yeah, it was an interesting movie because it was such an R&D exercise. Now going back to that point, Unity and Unreal were somewhat similar at that point. Neither of them had any virtual production tools, and you guys built a lot of that stuff from scratch. And then it was the inspiration for what Epic have done with Unreal after that as well. A lot of what was made on that movie, using Mandalorian as the vehicle to implement it in Unreal. But a lot of that's where a lot of that came from.
Yes.
And I know that, but not many people, I think, know that that's actually where a lot of the at least user experience and R&D and figuring it out actually happened on that film.
Yes, it was wonderful. The team turned it into, rewrote it essentially in Unreal, and then it got bundled up by Epic and put into 4.23 for their vProd release. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I bet you didn't see that coming.
No.
Yeah, is there any other kind of favorite experiences or things that you enjoyed working on Lion King?
Well, I'd love to ask what you were doing 3 meters away on Lion King.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I probably said this on podcasts before, but I was leading in the virtual art department, so I was just on the other side of the wall from you, just next to stage. I was leading a team of 15-ish artists in that building, and then also in London, building building stuff, taking what the art department had done, and making it performant, making it run in VR, and doing pre-scouts in the corner of the room, and then taking that stuff onto stage, making sure it all worked before it went on stage, where it was really important that it worked.
Right.
Much more expensive in on the other side of that door. So yeah, I was basically doing that. There was a real mix of things because I was working on tools as well. I was as well as doing the aesthetic side and QCing art. I was also leading back into my past and doing some tools development so that the bad artists could speed up the workflows and we could simplify things. And it was a really experimental early use of USD
Mm,
for our sins. We were using that technology probably a little bit too early, too soon.
yes.
So trying to make some things which the problems that created, I was trying to create tools that were undoing some of those problems and making it easier for the artist to work on because it was pretty abstract. It was almost like going back to the early days of Jurassic Park where everything was an abstraction. It was like a really weird looking interface to try and control things.
Mm,
Not very user friendly. So I guess part of what I was doing was user experience too in a different way.
yeah, that's so noble of you to have embraced our Lord and Savior USD so soon. Like it must
It
have been
wasn't my
tough.
choice.
Ah! That, you know, I want to tell you about USD a little bit because it has inspired
Please
me.
do. Yeah.
Um, it was a huge effort. It's done great things. It reminds me of earlier in my career in 2D land doing color workflows for Scanline VFX. I was in charge of all the color in the facility. So you can imagine that when OCIO came along, the open color workflow, it was like, yes, this is great. My job is so simple now. So between, living that revolution, seeing what's happening with USD, I think we need a similar thing for avatars. So, with my work with Vodcasto doing these 2D avatars, what I've done for 3D avatars and like rigging setups in Unity, I can see how like if we had a really simple avatar descriptor, we could potentially share these avatars across different systems without too much trouble. I feel like right now people are like, oh, if Fortnite could never share avatar with Doom or whatever, like imagine the FBXs and how they would explode. I feel like if you were to take a step back from that and consider it from the open color perspective of just like a tiny little Lego block, like just an XML or a JSON file that just describes basic traits about the avatar, then like any system could read that in and spit out their equivalent of the avatar. So like, if you had an avatar you defined in Bitmoji that was like, oh, it's, she's a Caucasian woman with brown hair and pink accent and she wears a denim vest. That might look one way in Bitmoji. And then when you get it into Minecraft, they'll just read that JSON and they'll be like, well, sorry, we don't have denim vests, but we can give you a blue top. And we don't have brown to pink hair, but we can give you brown hair. And then you get this like approximation of your avatar within this existing pipeline. And I'm very excited to just think about this little Lego piece that we could be using that's just written in basically plain English JSON that could really tie together all of these avatar projects we're seeing, whether that's like video games or like these NFT like profile pic projects. They all have avatar makers and none of the avatar makers are talking to each other yet. And I think we might see some sort of universal avatar descriptor file emerge soon. And that would be so glorious. And that's, I'm actually working on a white paper for this like UAD concept. And I'm really hoping that, it catches on or that maybe I've overlooked something that already exists, because this little building block of pipeline piece would be huge for like an interoperable metaverse.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely made me think that the and ding of the buzzword bingo had metaverse. It always has to come up at least once in every conversation, I think. Yeah, but definitely, I mean, like I've heard a lot of conversations about the metaverse. One of my favorites is from Tim Sweeney from Epic, him talking about the things that are going to help make it exist, being the standards, being the things like USD and your UAD, which now nobody can copy that because it's out there.
Heard it here first. CG
Yes.
Pro.
Awesome. Exclusive. I love it. Thank you. Yeah, it's a really cool idea. Yeah, it's I think I do agree with him. I think on the standards of being able to work across all the different building blocks of what the metaverse is meant to be. It's an often talked about thing, probably quite misunderstood a lot of the time, but I do believe that like he said, it is about bringing different things together. It's not one entity that can own the metaverse. If it is, then that's not really the metaverse. What are your feelings on that word, the metaverse?
I don't know why this word is like so illegal. I love saying this instead of this laundry list of platforms that are going to be connected in some nebulous way. It's much easier to just say metaverse. I embrace it. I'm leaning in.
Love it. So clearly you like it. What what does it mean to you, I guess? And actually, that question just came up in the chat.
Nice. Oh yeah, the chat. Yes. So my definition of metaverse would be a place you can go like virtually to express yourself, like whether that's socializing or performing or just publishing something, it would be this series of venues you can access, whether that's 2D or 3D or immersive. Um, and you would presumably, interface as some sort of avatar or even just a screen name, but hopefully avatars. We love avatars. And then hopefully there would be interoperability between these various platforms. Like that's the dream, right? Interoperable metaverse. And that's what we're working on at Voltaku right now. Is that sounds like very huge in scale, but actually we're just kind of, starting small, agile approach. Like let's talk to a couple different projects that we have, common values with, get to know their engineers, see if they like this UAD idea, see if they want to see if our avatars can visit each other's platforms, and sort of like manifest using these descriptors. To me, interoperability is definitely part of the metaverse, although I don't know how long it will be until we see that.
Yeah, maybe a while. Yeah, it's not yeah, it's some work. Let's say that. Definitely
Yeah.
some work to get it to happen. Because yes, not just you're talking about not just sending the avatars to each other, but actually being able to communicate between those two spaces, maybe even at the same time, exist in multiple places at the same time. I guess the sky's the
Could
limit.
be. Yeah. Redundant display in multiple platforms is not part of my definition of metaverse. That seems very large in scope.
Right. Yeah, start with something a little more achievable than that.
Yeah,
Or
just a bunch of disjointed communities that are held together by the idea of they'd like to be together one day.
yeah. And I guess in a way the metaverse already exists because of there are those kinds of things out there already.
Yeah.
There's things like Fortnite, whatever. I definitely feel out of touch and old when I start talking about that. I realize that I don't do those things very much. But do you spend a lot of time in those kinds of spaces?
I've never been in Fortnite or Roblox or any of these amazing monster platforms.
Okay,
Maybe,
makes me feel
maybe I've
better.
watched some playthroughs, but never made an account.
Right. But now you're doing what you're doing, do you think you'll try it out,
Oh, I
explore it?
have to for user research, but
Yeah,
my metaverse home is VR chat. I love it in there. It's very fun and cool. It fits my age group.
right.
Yep, that's my zone of comfort.
Yeah, I guess there's a few different things that along those lines. There's alt space as well, which I have experienced. I can say I've tried that one, and
Yeah,
it's fun. I like the I guess the ability to have something that's not super realistic. There's kind of fun. It's kind of creative to make something that's a little bit more stylized and abstract, and you can play with it a bit more.
yeah. I love how empowered we're going to be to create stuff in that space, which is why I think Unreal and Unity are going to be playing huge roles in this world we're building because they're the obvious points of entry for creating virtual worlds and interactability.
Yeah. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Unity these days? Because I know that Unreal has got a lot more press around virtual production as they kind of took it on a little bit more, but it seems like Unity is making some moves out there and um, doing more things, whether they're trying
Yes,
to catch up or not. But
I'd
yeah,
call buying Weta effects doing some things.
doing some things. Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm optimistic that they'll develop some kind of system and catch up a bit, but it will be interesting to see if they can dethrone Unreal or even compete as like an out of the box virtual production solution. We'll see, I guess. I'm pleased to not have a horse in the race and just be able to sit back and have great tools coming from two different directions at once.
yeah, yeah. I think it's great, having, especially if they start doing similar things, having competition's good.
Yes.
encourages people to bring their best work forwards. And I've really enjoyed Unity as well. Obviously, working on those movies, Jungle Book and Lion King were both Unity. I've I've loved it and love Unreal too. They're both great and different. Somebody's asked Unity or Unreal 4. What is your preference?
Oh, we're not gonna put Unreal 5 in the mix. My preference,
Well, you can.
I think they're both outstanding for different purpose. I'm certainly more comfortable in Unity. So if I were to launch one and do a project, it would be Unity.
Great.
Yeah, that's what I made Vodcasto in. That's what we made Lion King in. But at the same time, like, oh, those metahumans and like nanite and like all this crazy tech that Epic is putting forth is just so enticing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's just an exceptional time. I've been in visual effects for about 15 years, and I think it's the most exciting time that I can remember in my career. Just the amount of innovation that's coming forwards now is I have not seen in that, at least in that time anyway. I know that just before then, the visual effects had a massive innovation kick, but that felt like it started to level off by the time I joined the industry, and but now we're really seeing that coming forwards again in visual effects and filmmaking and VTubing and so many other industries as well.
Yes.
Another question came in. What do you
Mm.
think the future of VTubing will look like? Are there any other potential uses to applications like Vodcasto that you think haven't been explored yet?
Yes, so many. So Vodcasto's it's heading down this path. It's not there yet, and but I do feel that it's going to become popular, and there's going to be tons of apps doing this. But this idea of VTubing in AR, I think will be huge. It's like splitting the difference between VTubing and Snapchat, such that it becomes like really easy to just hold up a phone, show yourself wherever you are on the train, at brunch, as your character, like fully, without slippage, without you know tracking issue, like sticking you to the ground, and just allowing you to really embody an avatar at the drop of a hat. I feel like that's coming. And I also feel like multiplayer is something we're not seeing a lot of in VTubing. The only app I know doing this is Virtual Cast. They're so ahead of their time. But this idea to just like summon a friend, right? Like that's a whole part of this beautiful XR metaverse that we want, is like that I'm in the same room virtually as someone in AR who's across the country from me, and we are together in that moment. So of course, an obvious extension of that would be like AR VTubing multiplayer, where you're both in an environment together, experiencing it like somewhat together, and projecting as if you're both in that moment. And I think that's going to be really exciting and fun, and I can't wait till that's becoming the norm.
Amazing. You thinking about the kind of mix of real and virtual, like things like volumetric capture, bringing real people in to virtual worlds as well as the avatar idea.
Yeah, I mean, sure, we're already seeing that with snap, uh, spectacles and lenses and stuff. Is like volumetric effects in real time, tracking correctly with the camera, and benefiting from these really tight lidar scans of an environment. Like that's already there. So it's only a matter of time before we get the sort of like Miyazaki treatment to those 3D volumetric effects, and then see them in this like anime IRL scenario, I think. So I'm excited for that.
Mm. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, like seeing the characters being changed, but also maybe the environment starting to that you're in start to be made cartoon-like, and you get to see where you are, but it's like a different look on it.
Yes, I feel like mixed media is just something that animation as a whole has like not really tapped into yet. Like Into the Spider-Verse did the great, like mixing of different styles, and like halftones, and traditional ink with this like 3D animation, and it was amazing, and people were so receptive to that. And I feel like we're going to see a lot of these types of mixings happening more, like photoreal background, cartoon foreground. Like I think that's going to be huge, and I think that this kind of app will push that movement forward.
Amazing. Well, yeah, it's. I guess we have to wait and see what it's going to be like. It sounds like you're experimenting and doing some very cool stuff, and yeah, I can't wait to see where it all goes.
Yes.
But um, going back to your time at Magnopus, can you talk a bit about some of the things that you worked on while you were there, other
Oh,
than Lion King?
yeah. Um, maybe.
Or if you can't, then that's okay as well.
Let me think if there was any project at all in between. uh, you know, no, no. These NDAs are like
That's a
really
fine.
fierce.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Yeah,
Hmm.
sorry to put you on the spot,
No, I should
but
have prepared an answer.
yeah, no, that's okay. Well, we obviously safe to talk about the Lion King. And lots of that went out as behind the scenes footage, and it's fine to start talking about that kind of thing. But I know the NDA world is pretty all encompassing.
Yes. I can tell you that while I was on my secret project, there was a project in parallel happening at Magnopus, which was the Expo 2020 World's Fair, which was very cool and, branding itself a bit as like an initial metaverse application, which is pretty rad, where, you get to be an avatar, you're exploring this digital twin of the expo, which is this triumph of humanity every couple of years where they bring all the world together and different countries have these different pavilions at this huge venue, and they essentially digitized that experience, with panache. They stylized all the animation and like made it very cute and cool, and so that was very fun to watch happening a few desks away.
Awesome. Yeah, it's cool to hear about it. Yeah, I'd love to hear about all the things you can't talk about, but I know that
One
I
day
know that you
on my
can't.
deathbed.
What how about talking about virtual production? Obviously, we talk that's a almost as nebulous as the metaverse, but and is a lot of the things that we've been doing for a long time combined with some new techniques that are changing it. Um, what excites you about what you're seeing with the advances that have been made, obviously through Lion King, and now more things are being invented on top of that? What excites you about how it's affecting filmmaking?
Oh, I just think it's a revolution for storytelling because suddenly you don't need a crazy budget to do these like what only a dozen years ago may have even been considered high-end visual effects. You can do it in your backyard. That's literally what Voltaku did for their proof of concept. We shot this 2.5 minute teaser in the backyard with Vive trackers and Unreal running, and it was incredible how accessible it was. I could only imagine how fun it would be to be like a high schooler right now, just chilling with your friends, and you decide, let's make a movie this weekend. How cool. And it's not just Unreal where this stuff is happening. Like we're seeing it happen in VR chat. There was a Sundance submission this year that was filmed entirely inside of VR chat. Like
Oh, really? Wow.
incredible. Yes. Yeah. Very cool to see these kinds of things coming out. And I'm sure there's VTuber films as well. Like stuff is just getting easier, which means more stories are getting told, which means, we're entering a cool new renaissance of entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing, like you said, that it's freely available to people. Even going back with filmmaking, people were experimenting with cameras at home, and a lot of the famous directors that had great careers started experimenting in that kind of hacker maker kind of environment where they're just trying things out. But digital, going back to I guess the beginning of my career, just before that, I remember when Maya was $20,000-$30,000 for a license, and the machine to run it on was $150,000. And just to sit down and do anything, you had to be obviously people had to believe in you a lot to invest that much in you and trust you to use it. So it wasn't at all accessible. I remember digital stuff, digital filmmaking, CG was super inaccessible, and
Right.
it was really hard to get the opportunity to actually get to try it. Let alone, I went to in my university, my computer science degree, I had the opportunity to see Maya. We had a unit in Maya. That's what lit me up, was having that exposure to that. It was on a silicon graphics machine, and it was that expensive to do it, but they had the kit, so I saw it, and that was like I am in. I'm hooked. It took me a few years to actually get a job with it. But yeah, amazing now that you can, for with almost nothing,
Yeah, you
uh,
just need like
just
a phone.
right. Yeah, you don't even need a computer. You can just the phones are more powerful than those machines that were those SGIs that we were using then.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, it's been amazing to see what people come up with. And I think it's like with anything, when it's widely accessible, you get a lot of a big variety of stuff. But a lot of cool things are allowed to come out of it, and being able to experiment, I think, is the key. And I guess that's being an engineer, you appreciate that, you being able to try things out and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. Yep. I'm excited to see all the different kinds of stories that are going to get told now because the threshold is so low. There's no gatekeepers. So exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's super cool that you can do it wherever you are too. You can be out on the move and not have to wait till you get home to try something out. You can actually create on these
Yes.
things.
VTubing on the go.
Absolutely. Anything else that you're excited about in the future?
Oh, plenty. Yeah, no, I think we've hit most of the notes already from a tech standpoint, at least. Just excited to see so many people onboarding into the space, and exciting to help make the tools that, enable people to create the art they want to create.
And you have some art yourself, I'm sure, that you want to make, as well as helping others to do it.
Oh, yeah, we're not giving up on our little indie show. And Podcasto has a mascot called Echo Luna. She's trying to be a famous singer-songwriter, on TikTok doing her thing, gonna start some live stream. She's got a VR chat world, like all kinds of creative, cool stuff is happening around my little orbit.
Amazing. Now, is there any places that people can check out what you're personally doing, as well as the links the addresses, I guess, that you've given for Vodcasto, talked about Voltaco. Is there anything you can share about your own personal work? Any websites or
I've recently got a Twitter. I am at Sally Wrote This. That is my Twitter handle. And so I post, whatever tidbits there. But most of my projects are currently concentrated at vodcasto.info and voltaku.com for the most part.
awesome? Great. Well, yeah, to our listeners, go check all those things out. And yeah, just been a pleasure having you on, Sally. Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate your time and sharing all your experiences, and wish you all the very best with your new venture and merger. And yeah, I can't wait to see where you go with it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was such an incredible opportunity to chat with you.
Oh, a pleasure. Pleasure was absolutely mine, and getting lots of love from the chat. People thanking
Ah,
you, and clearly you've entertained a lot of people out there. So yeah, thank you again, and to all our listeners out there, thank you very much for tuning in. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you heard, and check us out at becomecgpro.com. We run classes in Unreal. If you're interested in hearing more, go and have a look at the website. and have a lovely evening or whatever time of day you're listening to this. And check us out in another couple of weeks. We'll have another episode. Thank you.